All right, Zig coming out on top. Today on the show, we have Josh Hight of PINES. Josh is a man of many talents. Not only is he a singer-songwriter, musician, but he is a professional photographer and director. Now, PINES is Josh's return to the musical expression. His full career being a photographer and director had shifted his medium from sound to sight, but now we were returning back to sound. Josh was in a band called the Detachment Kit, and he also had a solo project after that called Irons. But after years away, he returns with the new project, PINES. PINES has a new album out. It's called In His Wake. It's a deep one. It's a cinematic, soundscape masterpiece. It's a really, really beautiful record. It kind of deals with the idea of loss, and we get into our conversation. But one thing I really enjoyed about the conversation about you're listening to, we compare music into kind of a visual field. And it's interesting to think of a soundscape and try to visualize it. I also kind of try to dive deep into the photography mindset and see how it compares into the songwriter mindset. And I think we get to some interesting points. I think you guys will find it interesting as well. Anywho, In His Wake is streaming on all the streaming platforms under the artist name PINES. I recommend you guys go check that out. And if you hear anything you like in this conversation, you can rate, review, subscribe to the podcast on any of the podcast platforms. It helps me keep talking to cool guests like Josh and sharing their insight with you. So now, without further ado, this is my conversation with Josh. Well, cool. All right, man. Well, to kind of start off, you have a really, as far as when I get artists from Howard, it's really interesting. You have a whole kind of different arc, it seems like, with your creative outlet, more so than music. So I kind of wanted to dive into as far as with this project in particular, was there a shift to try to want to do want to do something more musical in this sense, or with an image that wasn't as presented in that way? A visual aspect, I should say.
This kind of my relationship with Richard was Richard Norris we started working on visual projects together and kind of using sound within them. And then this kind of sort of came out of that. But I'm a very visual person. My music always has a lot of visual language to it. So it's very different from what I've done in the past, because this is sort of has come out of nowhere for me, really, to kind of be reintroduced to making music. Not in a I've always made music, but I mean more in a public facing way. I kind of hung my boots up a while ago, and so this is sort of revisiting that. So it's really exciting that it's also it feels very fresh, which is cool.
So it's interesting. So this all kind of sparked in a way, as far as being how you said, hanging your boots, a music project because of Richard. So how did you guys meet? When did that interaction, or have you guys known each other for a while?
We've known each other for a while now, but we met in London. We both live in Lewes here in the south coast of England. And we met through a mutual friend at an event in London, and we caught the train home together and just got on super, super well. Just kind of started working on stuff immediately. He had me in mind to do some pictures he was working on with Jamie Reed. And so I did that, and then did some press pictures of Richard, and then I had him do some music for a little short film, and some fashion work that I was working on. I'm a fashion photographer. And then it kind of slowly developed into, hey, maybe we should do more of a band structure thing. And I presented a couple songs of mine, and he had never heard me sing or knew what my ability was, really. So I think I know he was really pleasantly surprised to say, okay, cool, this is what we're doing. They're your songs, and I'm going to produce it, and let's get some people to play on it and just see what happens. So it was really organic.
Was he, before meeting on the train, was he aware of your work?
I don't think so.
Okay,
no, he knew my photography, because I was introduced to him as a photographer that a few of his friends were talking
Recording in progress.
Sorry, I forgot to push that
okay.
button on the Zoom.
I got it. Okay. We met, introduced as a photographer, and his colleagues were aware of me. So he'd seen my work, but I didn't know anything. He didn't know anything about like my musical past or anything.
Okay. Because like looking at his, like, he's worked with some legends, man.
Absolutely.
Like Joe Strummer. Like, I mean, so to kind of dive into like,
close.
Yeah, he was close with Joe Strummer. That's sick. Was there any, on that note, was there any cool anecdotes? Like, oh yeah, Joe would have done it like this. You know what I mean? Like, not that he sounds like that, but you know.
I'd love it if he sounded that way. Never like in that way, but Richard's written a book, and there's lots of anecdotes of like his time in various kind of like scene pools in that time. So he's a, you know, we all have friends that kind of have stories that link to like, you know, musical idols or whatever. And his always kind of come out of nowhere. And I'm like, oh, wow, you're talking about Peter Gabriel, or like, you know, like he'll mention something and it's so flippant and not like, he's not boasting. It's really natural. And he's lived a really interesting musical life.
That's so cool. Like, but it's also, I think that's, you know, one thing, if you're just in it, you know, those are just people, you know, they're not like the people on the posters and the wall, you know? So, okay. It's interesting. Like the idea of like taking, like when you set up a shot, like, cause I don't know too much film lingo or like, as I do music, but like when you're setting up a shot and you're like, you know what you're looking for, like, do you find there's a crossover between kind of setting up for a shot and like kind of setting up a song?
Well, that's an interesting question. Yeah, I guess. I mean, there's music feels a lot more like flow based for me, you know, where there's a privacy and like an intimate sort of like creation process, where photography for me and what I do specifically is very public. Like there's lots of people around me. There's it's high pressure, high stakes. But I would say when I'm doing things more on a personal level, there's like letting yourself have the moment to like make mistakes, speed up, slow down, and create a parameter to then sort of like bump up against, you know, like a little bit of controlled chaos, I guess. So you're not forming it before it happens. And I'm saying this with music as well. You kind of like, you know, you've got the guitar you play with, or the amp, or the DAW. Like you have parameters. I really like that actually. So it's not like a infinite possibility of things. So I think that's a smart way of approaching things within photography, is to have like a box and then push up against the sides until it, you know, starts to feel right.
Is that like when you were initially like learning photography and kind of getting your skill set in that, is that how you kind of did the idea of the box, the frame in that sense? Like, is that what helped make it make sense, or is that how you always saw it?
Interesting. I never like studied photography. Now I went to film school. And I think originally I wanted to be a filmmaker. And then that's kind of when I met the guys in my band in my early 20s. And I just kind of quickly left that and went on tour, and that was my life. Photography I was an art director in London for a while. Photography it definitely came out of problem solving things that came in that either weren't good enough or no one wanted to shoot. So I was kind of making creative decisions on my own, not really thinking of myself as a photographer, just thinking like, oh, I'm like making images, solving problems. And then really good friends of mine were like, you're actually kind of good at this. Maybe you should think about doing this. And I did a total like shift to photography. And I got attention for it. It was something that suddenly I was able to like express myself in a way that I wasn't as an art director. because the concepts were mine, the subjects were of my choosing, like the edit was mine, which I think is the most important thing as a photographer and as a musician. Like that edit, you can have a bunch of stuff and throw it at the wall, but it's not a thing until you like hone it into its place.
I think that's well said. And like when you were like you're having the final here's the book, here's everything in it, I cut out all the stuff I don't want in it. And like, because I guess with photography or with like with music or with film, like you can get more than you need.
Absolutely.
And okay, that makes sense. So so with the early band, what was the name of the band?
Called the Detachment Kit.
The Detachment. Okay. And like you guys just jumped into, so this was like when you were playing with them, like were you guys playing a lot before you hit tour, or did you just jump in the van after kind of getting it together?
We kind of went right away. Like we were in our early 20s. It was like 1999, 2000. So it was like that era. We were in Chicago, but none of us were from Chicago. And we saved up all our money. We recorded at Steve Albini's studio, Electrical Audio, and like did 2 days there and just like blitzed the record. And then like really immediately started to like get some attention in New York, and played with the Liars quite a bit around that time, and in the Yeah. And we were just like really into having like like exciting live set and being on tour and like covering ground, because at the time that was sort of like the only way you could get in front of people. Streaming services weren't a thing. Like, you need to like play in front of people and you needed to make a mark. So we wanted to be this like wild rock band, and it was the right time and we were the right age. It changed so quickly after that, the landscape of music. There's a sweet spot, I think, of that early 2000s bands on tour.
I definitely, I agree. Feeling that like my band putting it together, not hitting that wave, missing that wave, Right. But it's interesting, the idea of just this kind of like going off like what's working. Like, so as the band's playing, and like, I mean, did you work with Steve Albini? Like, did he?
No, we worked with Greg Norman, who is the head engineer there. Is like, I love Greg, and we've all known him for a long time. Like, I think a lot of bands were kind of coming up around that time, and engineers as well. So, and we all hung out at the same bars, and like, I worked at the Rainbow Club, which was next to Soma Studios. So it's like Tortoise and Joan of Arc and the Scene Cake, and John Haggerty from Naked Raygun worked at the bar. Like, it was really like a very kind of like tight scene where everyone knew each other, which was a good thing, and maybe not so good thing too, because I think people everyone supported each other, but there was no like, oh wow, this band's great or that band's great. Everyone kind of like was like mid about each other.
I guess that's because everyone's kind of on the same bill, same stage. Yeah. It's all old news to us.
Kind of, yeah. It's really weird. I mean, you must feel that a bit in Cleveland. I love that town, and I know it's really got a lot of musical legacy there.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like that's anywhere if you don't venture out. You know what I mean? Yeah. And it's definitely, I think it's maybe, like, at least my experience has been, it's been pretty difficult to venture out, and like, I think like what you said, like the right age with certain people, like if you don't have too many commitments, it's a lot easier to do it.
Absolutely.
But yeah, I don't know, like here in Cleveland, like there's so many like genre subsections. It's kind of like, if you fall in between all of them, you're fine. But if you're in one, I guess you can kind of be like, oh, Cleveland.
Yeah. That's very Midwestern attitude, isn't it?
Yeah. But I don't know. I think we have a really like supportive scene though. That kind of build off that. Like we got I do a lot of benefit shows, and they usually go fairly okay or successfully. And like, so a lot of people care, and maybe, I think that's a super important thing. And like, so I got rose tinted view of the Cleveland scene here, but, okay. So like when initially when you, but it's kind of riding that wave I wanted to go back on, like with what's working, when photography started to take off, was the band like not, did the band kind of hit like a plateau or something at that point, or were you still doing the band?
I wasn't in the band anymore.
Okay.
Yeah, I left Chicago in 2007 to move to London, and it was generally to kind of escape, not escape, that's the wrong word. It was to change up how I was living. I worked like 3 or 4 jobs and was like, in going back and forth to New York because my band at that point had moved to New York. I decided to leave the band, moved to London, went to school, and just kind of like in an effort to like start over. I knew some people there, and music wasn't really something I was thinking about doing. I had a little solo project that I recorded a record, and then I played a little bit in a band called Piano Magic with Glenn Johnson's a really good friend of mine who I met right when I moved here. I sang on a couple records of theirs, but I was really kind of focused on like having a career and trying to gain some sort of creative credential to make money in the creative industry outside of music, because music was just not something I could see making me a living. So yeah, I definitely sort of let go of making music. I'm still making it, but was like, it was more for me, less of an output publicly.
Gotcha. Well, and like, so then so you studied filmmaking. Did you fall into filmmaking as well? Like as far
I have more now than before. I mean, I in high school I was painting and really wanted to do more like experimental moving image that felt like a moving painting or something that was like a bit more abstract. And so I do things like that now. I work on a lot of moving image stuff on the back of photo shoots, and I get commissioned to do some strict like film work, but it's a different beast. It's a lot more money, a lot more people. The whole pre and post process is very much more elaborate. But I do love it. It's something that like, I want to explore more.
Like, I guess like, so, I mean, I think there is a part of the answer in the question, but so like when moving from photography, because there's certain films that like the shot looks like a painting. Like is that initially like the type of filmmaking you wanted to dive into?
A little bit. I mean, with my images, I set things up almost like boundaries. So, okay, we're like, I'm looking at an image now of a friend that I shot in a field, and it was really windy, and it was like the sun was setting, and I wanted this like really ethereal kind of thing. So the scene was set, had some flash involved, and you can kind of like work around the parameter with photography, because there's things that you don't see, and the things you don't see are larger than the things that you do see. With film, a moving image, there's much more that you're seeing. There's less of a mask. So I tend to gravitate towards film when I'm making film, to do things that are a little bit more murky or abstract, or have sort of like are not so much of a tell. I hate it when you can like tell how things are done.
Mm-hmm. So okay, so it's interesting, like, because I kind of listening to this project, there's kind of this space, this veil of not like there's room in it, and like, or like musically, I feel like there's like, well, you could do this or do that over so that kind of vagueness and not like clear cut thing that you're how you're describing. I think sonically you capture that as well. And I find that really interesting, that like moving in from photography, that kind of, I'm trying my best to keep all the terms right. I know, like, but the idea that what you don't see is kind of telling more, right?
Yeah.
Is that, is the term negative space? No, that's in the, okay. So negative space. All right. I'm going to use it right. So the negative space in both. So, but to kind of want to work with that, was there an artist in particular that like, after you started getting comfortable with film and like photography, that you were really moved by their use of negative space?
Yeah. Two people are really influential to me. One is Brian Griffin, who's did all the album covers of the early Depeche Mode and um, uh, Echo and the Bunnymen, and he's worked with tons of people. But he's also a really brilliant portrait photographer, and he's kind of like a Dadaist, like absurd way of posing people and incorporating props. But I met him, I reached out to him and we became like pretty close. And then he died a couple years ago, which was really sudden and very sad. But I was so happy to get to know him because he was like my number one photography influence. But other than that, I think David Lynch is like always like an artistic reference for me all the way around the board. Like, I think he's just so incredible. Thinks about things in a musical way as well, and really knows how to like tug against the lines. So there's a lot of contrast in what he's doing, and innovative.
Because I've been going down the deep dive with David Lynch, and that's really cool that you can like meet up with this guy and like kind of pick his brain and become his friend. Like, I don't know, that's like a whole great. It's a whole other thing, like when like it's a relationship that just happens, but you know what I mean, like, or a meet and greet or whatever. But when you actually develop a friendship, it's a whole other thing, you know, like.
Yeah, but, awesome. And I just called him up. His phone number was on his website.
That's awesome.
I know. And then we kept hanging out. And then I ended up doing photographs of him with all his props. He wrote a foreword in my book, and we became really close.
That's awesome. Very cool. Okay, so with these kind of their images spoke to you with this, and like as you were, did you always know it was a negative space, or the lack thereof knowing what the whole image is that was appealing to you, or was that kind of like after the practice and after the, being in photography for a bit?
I think that what those two artists share, and I think what I try to project in my work, is this sense of otherness, which is like you're not really sure what's going on, and if we're looking at like the before or the after, or like what came before, what came after, what aren't we seeing? So yeah, I guess in a sense that's the negative space, isn't it? It's the unspoken. So it sort of defines the subject a bit more of the place. So it becomes more reflected onto the viewer or the listener to define what we're actually looking at and what's being spoke about. So you spend more time with it and analyze maybe what the threads are, as opposed to it being something that's just like super descriptive and giving you everything in one go. I'm attracted to that, and I think that's how I compose music, lyrics definitely, and images, certainly.
Well, I was going to bring that up, because listening through this new record, it's kind of like I feel this feeling when hearing the music. I don't quite know what any of the lyrics are trying to say with an initial listen, but I think that, like you said, like interesting art questions you to pull yourself into that, and like just even people that like have constantly been like questioned their whole existence, like someone like Bob Dylan, you know what I mean? Yeah. Like there's this vagueness, like I know what he's doing, he's strumming these chords and singing the song, and it rhymes every once in a while, you know, like what does it mean, you know?
Yeah,
and like that slight vagueness can keep someone like to find themselves within it, you know? So like something that may have no meaning to the artist, not that I'm saying this has anything to do with you, but just like we'll put Bob Dylan for example, like he might just like fart out a song and be like, I don't know, and that could be someone's whole dissertation. Like
sure, I know I love that though.
But
it's really cool.
It is, because like it takes like the kind of absurd and just makes it just like profound. That's really, I mean, I think like it's really fascinating, like, because I've never really got to kind of pick someone's brain who like went to the visual realm in the sense that like you have, and made a complete like career out of it, and still is doing that with music. So with this record in particular, to kind of dive in, because it's a pretty heavy record. After reading a bit about it and getting a little more context for like where it was coming from, like, so with the amount of like, because I personally have been through a fair amount of loss, and my band, we've been working on this whole kind of concept record based around that kind, grief and this kind of like their journey through it. So for you, when it came to coming out with like, or to working with Richard and putting together these tunes, was that like I mean, because it was a collaborative thing, but also like something like grief and loss is like a very personal thing. Did the concepts of this come together through working with Richard, or was this kind of like you guys would work together? I'd take the tune, whatever, the demo home. Is that really when these kind of concepts came out, or did you go in together with like, this is what I'm going through?
I don't think he knew what was going to come out lyrically. I was writing songs. We had like one song that I came to him with, and it's the last song, Uriel. There weren't really any lyrics. It's just sort of like a beat and some guitars and stuff. And then I started to like write lyrics to it. And then another song came, and they quickly became really personal. And that's when he very much was like, these songs are about you. I love it. Like, you need to like do it. So there was like a conscious split, I think, of like what we were bringing to the table at that point. And it was natural, and it felt right, where I needed to go away and like work on this world and then bring it back, and he can sort of give it space, because I have a way of making things that's musically, that's I know what I'm doing in with music software, but I have a tendency to make things really like squashed and like tons of reverb, and I need that like atmosphere to sort of like seep myself into it, where he really pulls it apart. And then we started talking about things like, do we need this, does this chorus need to repeat? Like, can we take that chorus and move it here? More like arrangements, which I'd never really worked with someone personally arranging stuff. And they're really simple, like, take this and move it here. And that was really exciting. So we didn't really write the songs conceptually together. It was more of like, I brought these ideas to the table and moods, and then they were scoped out over time with us in the studio, more in a production space.
Yeah. Okay. Because it's with music, with music with more space and more atmosphere, like in kind of less of a direct, this is the beat, here is the guitar part, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's almost harder, I think, to kind of capture that essence and be able to kind of take like, okay, here's section A, but section A is like this vast thing. What cues section A? You know what I mean? Like it's. I think it's more difficult to take something like that and put it somewhere else, and to move chunks like that, or even like
I never. I mean, that's not something I would have ever thought to do. So
yeah, okay.
I think because Richard deals with remixes so much, like he can just like chop, move, place. And he's like, there, sounds great. I don't think that way. I'm like, okay, we got to record it all over again. I got to do this part this way. And I have much more of a linear sense of like what it means to like record something, where he's, very, very proficient as a producer to just kind of scrap ideas together and say, look, it could sound like this.
That's cool. And when that makes me think like so in like a different kind of context with working with Richard on music, have you seen any relation of that kind of nonlinear or that kind of like philosophy applied to photography in your other work at all?
Oh, for me, absolutely. I mean, that is, I work that way. I like to do things in camera, but I also am like, I shoot digital, and I'm very much attached to like my color grades and my black and white grades, and I work on those incessantly to like make them look a certain way. So I guess in a way that's like post-processing thought. And there's some experimenting going on, but maybe, I don't know. That's a good question. Maybe in film, I think you have to think that way a bit more in film than in photography, like in moving image rather, because you need to think like not in a nonlinear fashion. You're like, okay, well, we're at this location. We need to shoot all the stuff that's filmed at this location. Then we move. But those marks might be, different parts of the story. Logistically, you need to like get it all done in one place. Fashion stories are a bit like that too. I've got a big like 20-page story I'm doing here, and we're going to 3 locations and they're kind of far apart. And I know that those won't appear next to each other. They're going to appear in different parts of the larger story. So you kind of need to think, what's the thread that keeps them together? And you're always thinking in a bit of a time void where you're thinking before or an after.
Okay. That's interesting. Like, so, I mean, and you mentioned before, like the kind of amount of pressure that comes from, and I guess is that more for the kind of fashion shoots where this kind of, yeah. Okay. Cause I mean, that's like I have to imagine a very hyper image based, like, just gotta look good. Like,
gotta look good. And there's a lot of opinions and a lot of money.
Yeah. Gotcha.
It's like, there's a lot of people's jobs not on the line. That makes it sound super dramatic, but like, there's lots of people that are doing their jobs that have to report back to other people. So, and there's like a big conglomerate at the base of it that's like supplying the money for everyone. So you need to kind of like have this professionalism with the people you're interacting with, but also have enough confidence in what you're doing to say like, okay, like give me space and let me do this. But often there's like, like dozens of people behind me while I'm focusing on the one thing. So, and sometimes I need to turn around and realize that the thing that's happening behind me is affecting the thing that's in front of me. And so it's a management thing. It's like, okay, can everybody like get lost or, be a bit more less seen.
Do you have have you in that situation, have you found a way to do that with them still there, like a mantra or a mental space that you can get in where they're like kind of vulturing behind you? I don't want to talk bad about people that, I don't want to put you in a bad spot, but like, where people are kind of looming over and you're trying to focus on, you're kind of caught in the middle. Do you have you like any meditation or ticks and trips to get there?
It's a management, right? It's like, again, it's like, I know that people want to see it. I know that sometimes I won't shoot with a monitor and I just shoot into the camera. But on big commercial jobs, usually, because there's people just want to like make sure everything looks good. So there'll be a monitor if I'm inside. But normally what I'll do is explain, like, I need 5 minutes with this. Everyone move away. And then once we're done, and I think we've like got something, we can all group together and look and then talk about it. So it's not being spoken about whilst it's happening, because I think that can really interfere unless it's something really energy based and you need that energy from everyone around. Someone's doing something and you need someone yelling at them or like motivating them basically. But most of the time I've found a way to I have lots of assistants with me too, and they're building walls and keeping, themselves in front of things so people can kind of be a bit respectful of the creation of the image and know that there will be a time for them to visit.
Okay, cool. It's like, so I guess, and like, my perception for like I think of the cartoon of someone taking a picture saying work it is that like you know what I'm saying, is that like kind of a thing that happens then when you're describing this type of energy?
Not with me.
Okay.
It definitely is. I mean, in that world it is. I think I make a lot of, I guess, like more dark thematic imagery. So it tends to kind of come with its own atmosphere. And sometimes the people that are on set don't really understand what's being made. So it is a little bit different. But there is definitely, the motivation to the subject is always needs to be there. Like I do a lot of talent, like celebrity stuff too, and they need to be told that it looks good. It's normal. But there's ways to do it where, it's not like the movie Blow Up or something.
Yeah. Well, I gotta imagine, like, looking at your work, it doesn't look like that. It looks really profound. It looks like how you it looks focused, and like but okay, so what I find interesting too is, like, in a way, in the kind of relate it back to this record, there's like, even though you're in the sea of people trying to do things and capture the right image and make sure their parties are all happy, it's still kind of an isolated thing where you're in the center focus, capturing the moment. And like, it's interesting that this record kind of has that that standpoint as well.
And
like,
I think it does. Yeah.
And like, I guess, like, well, especially with the kind of idea of loss and grief, and like, that's a very single, everyone experiences it differently, and it's like, in a way, it's in your own head, and just even looking at an image and really looking at it and ingraining it in your mind or whatever, in the case of capturing it on the camera, really focusing to make sure what you're seeing is there. It's also in here, it's in you, until it's captured, then it's shared. So like, and it's a really interesting way, I guess, because musically, to kind of like examine that in a sense through someone who works with photography, just behind a camera. And like, I guess like when you're writing lyrics, are you kind of like visually like thinking of what you're trying to say?
Yeah. I write lyrics in a way. I sing first before I write lyrics. So I sing to what I've played, and then I kind of take note of what came out, and then I start to sculpt that into something that maybe sounds a bit more like understandable. And then it sounds sort of lame, but it kind of starts to show itself a little bit, like, oh shit, this is about this. And then visually, I was just talking to my partner about this earlier. Like, I like the idea of removing all of the bulk in songs where you're just taking out not the meaning, but like the like synopsis. Like, you're only getting the like raw emotive parts or an obscure snapshot of what something feels like. And then there's leading into it. Like, there's that song 15 on the EP, which is it leads right into into something, kind of like know what we're listening to. But I didn't write that song thinking that's what it was going to be about, if you know what I mean. It was like I was like sculpting it, and then it kind of came to me. So yeah, I really like that. I think it's magic, like that way of writing. It's great.
I agree. And it's interesting, kind of going back to like the parameter of what you're being shown and what you're not being shown lyrically, you know what I mean? Like, tying back in that's so fascinating. So I guess, like, what are there some like musical influences that you can kind of trace to, in this sense that, like,
I mean, generally, or on this EP?
On this EP. Generally too. So,
well, I mean, I guess they kind of go hand in hand. I think when we first started talking about making music together, the first Cure record was like something we talked about a lot, Faith, which isn't the first one, but it's just one of the first ones. And I really loved that record and the atmosphere in it. So it was really cold and bleak and foggy, and kind of like, it's got this underlying punkness to it, but it's not punk. So I liked that. And I think we also wanted to make something that felt a bit soundtracky, had some atmospherics. We definitely wanted to collaborate with people, so we left space for that. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I'm a big like early British goth fan. Like, I love all that music, and that's always kind of ingrained in me. But then equally, I love bands like the Red House Painters and in that kind of like singer-songwriter, more American sounding music, I guess. Country and Western. I love country and Western, like early country and Western. So yeah, we kind of did like a weird mashup of stuff where I think going back and listening to the songs was like, oh, I didn't really think this was going to sound like that. Because it doesn't sound derivative, but I also don't think it sounds like one specific genre. It's like, I guess it's because we're older and come from like a whole sphere of influence.
Well, I agree with that. It's definitely in its own space, and it's a beautiful record, man. And like,
Thanks.
is it, being that it's an EP, is there more to it, or is
There is?
Yeah. Okay.
I mean, we left some things off because I think we originally just wanted to make like a really strong 4-song EP with like a 10-inch record, and release that and sort of just to see what people thought. You know, it wasn't like it kind of is like a bit of an experiment. And but while that was all happening, a lot more songs were written, and so then I've been working on quite a few more that I want to put out in another EP that sort of bookends this one. I also want to do a remix, like kind of single, I guess, where like take one song and give it to quite a few people and have them remix that song. And I've got some people in mind for that I'm really excited about reaching out to. Much kind of more like a 90s like shoegazer approach, where you get like, you know, bands like Autechre will do a remix or of a band that you wouldn't think would have an electronic remix to. I like that.
Yeah.
An unexpected collaboration.
That's cool. I think, well, it has this like kind of focusing on this like other element. Has it like inspired kind of going, like, have you, like, as a creative individual myself, I like trying new things and diving into another project in which I'm not the best at, or not, it's not the main thing, kind of in a way refreshes the thing you do all the time. Have you found that with diving into this record?
Yeah, man, it's been really exciting actually to like feel like refreshed is the right word, like to put yourself in another space and learn again, and let yourself grow and experiment, and especially using your voice. Like I find singing and thinking about things vocally and being much more of it about me versus about someone else through me, which is much more photography. It's nice, but it's also incredibly therapeutic. Especially doing, like, I've been doing interviews and talking about this, which I knew it was going to happen, but I guess I didn't expect it to be so cathartic. It's cool. Yeah, I love it.
That's awesome, man. Like it's super. It's cool that, especially with your situation now, you can celebrate you. You know.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Very cool. Very cool. I want a total kind of backstep question. From moving from America to London, musically, what would you say is like the biggest difference? Because you know, you hear that like the Stones that are taken from American music, and the British Invasion that's taken, you know. So when you moved, what was like the scene like, and what was musically was really different from each other?
The thing that I noticed the most moving to London in the like late 2000s was how connected everyone was to similar threads of music, genre-wise. Like in the States, so big that you get these like micro like scenes that like really, even when they have adjacency in different states, they're still really small, like Midwest hardcore, or like, for instance, like that kind of, or like really gnarly metal music or something. It's like it has like a through point through the country, but it's still really like close to its genre base. Where here, I think it's because it's so small, if something has remote success, it's really well known. So it's quite easy to like get a following. And not easy is the wrong word. It's quite easy for you to like break outside of that like niche of obscurity, I think. So, I mean, when I moved here, that kind of electro clash sound was happening, very electronic based things. But London's really exciting, especially then. There was so much going on, and you could really like much different than to New York, I think, because people were engaging with it in a way that was, in my mind, a bit more authentic, because there's not a gain. Like, people weren't doing things to like meet people to level up. It's more like actually going to being part of a scene and going out. New York kind of can feel, I think, especially in music, sometimes it's very like who's who, and maybe putting like showing face, which is not bad, but it is kind of how I think that scene is. So it was exciting to move here and experience the music scene, especially coming from Chicago. Chicago's like, I know that music scene so well, and it's amazing, but it's very tight.
But it seems like that with like, it's really interesting, because definitely here in America, it feels like, you're going, you meet the guy who books the thing, you know what I mean? It's a very kind of like goal oriented. So I wonder,
very American, isn't it?
Yeah, I get,
yeah.
Which is exhausting, but
it is, yeah.
And it's, I having a goal is good. Ultimately, I think, if you're driven to do a thing, I think that's a good thing. But also, I guess living is important too, Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah. Health, living,
Well, Josh, thank you so much for talking with me, man.
Yeah,
it's
no
a
problem.
beautiful record. I look forward to hearing the second half, and hopefully do you have any like kind of, before we wrap up, I guess, do you have any like, one, anything else to plug that we didn't get to, and two, is there going to be like a visual aspect to any of this, like music videos or a project? Yeah. Okay, all right.
Yeah, I'm working on a video this month, September, for 15.
Cool.
And I've got like some little snippets of visual stuff that I'm working on for like with the music, but yeah, definitely more interplay, moving image and music, and some live stuff coming up I'm working on. So yeah.
Okay, cool.
There's more in the works. Yeah.
Beautiful. Well, thank you so much for talking with me, man.
Thank you.
All right, before we wrap it up, just to kind of let you know I'm going to edit and mix this. I'll keep anything unless there's something you want me to take out, and I'll make a flyer. I'll pull from some of your photography and some of the album stuff, and then like put it together, and it should be out in like a few weeks.
Awesome.
Cool.
Sounds great.
Awesome, man. Well, thank you. Sorry if I like film camera wise, and like I don't know the lingo, so like, but I was really interested in like, I didn't want to get too far out there, like, because
I like that. Okay. I think it was great.
Awesome.
Yeah, no, I really appreciate it. So it's an interesting there's interesting crossovers that I had not really thought about so much. So I no, it was great.
Awesome.
Yo, Spike Spiegel here. You just listened to Zig at the Gig podcast. Keep riding the bebop. See you, Space Cowboy. Bang.